Hello and a warm welcome to all of you. Today, before I start with this program, I would like to announce that we have translation facilities. So you will see a globe which says interpretation. And those of you who are comfortable with Chinese, Hindi, or even Turkish, kindly click on that facility or link and you will be directed to that language which is more comfortable for you. So today we have a very, very interesting and exciting topic, karmic connections. Have you had some hard times or felt some pain and suffering in relationships? Have you come to a big realization, for example, the fact that you are tired of being mistreated by your partner, by your boss, by your friends, parents, or even your own child or your own children? Or that you will never let someone talk to you disrespectfully again? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're not alone. A relationship that often feels like you are pushing a 50-pound medicine ball uphill is called a karmic connection or relationship in spiritual terms. Sister Denise, which is known to all of you, is our speaker today. I shall still give a brief description or background about Sister Denise for those who are joining us for the first time today. Sister Denise is an experienced practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation for over 45 years with the Brahma Kumaris, and she has spent the last 4 decades traveling the globe, sharing her spiritual wisdom to audiences all over the world. So without further ado, I shall welcome her. She will also be answering questions today. So kindly drop your questions in the chat box and we shall address them to her at the end of the talk. Joining us from Germany, Sister Denise, good morning.
Good morning, Sister Jabin. Good morning, and so nice to be with everyone today. Let me just, oops, I just put myself on. There we are. So, karma, what a frequently used word. Karma is a word that belongs to India. It is the word meaning action. And it is very famous in the ancient scripture, which is called Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Karma, akarma, vikarma. That means there are 3 kinds of karma. Good karma, pure karma, neutral karma, and negative karma. So whatever is the interaction between ourselves and others, between ourselves and nature, and between ourselves and the divine is karma. And it's not just what we do, but also the words we use, even the tone of voice in the words we use. And a very subtle form of karma is thought and feelings. And so mostly people understand about karma in quite a simple way. And they usually say, as you sow, so you reap. Or we also hear it described like one of the scientific laws that everything has an equal and opposite reaction. So that means that karma is a spiritual law, which you can also find reflected in the laws of physics. And it is an energy which is always seeking balance. And every time we do anything, think anything, feel anything, or even react to anything, that applies pressure on this very complex system of balances. And then the energy of karma looks to redress the balance. So as Sister Jabin was saying, we have a lot of issues with one another. And so we would like to, I think, talk about the issues that we have with one another in two ways. One is that we have a karmic credit with people. Other is we have a karmic debt with people. So the experience of any kind of difficulty, suffering, being incorrectly treated, people having an inappropriate attitude towards us, all of this is an indicator that we are in some way in debt to that person, and the discomfort that we experience when they do not treat us correctly is the law of karma equalizing something that I must have done at some time to create a debt, which gets balanced anytime. Because sometimes you do something and nothing happens. That is to say, there's no reaction, no karmic balancing happening. And that's because it will come, but it won't necessarily come right away. So the consequences of karma are sometimes immediate, sometimes after a little while, and sometimes after a very long time. And this is where the idea of reincarnation needs to be added to the mix, because sometimes something will happen between ourselves and someone who we hardly know or only just met, but yet things go really badly. And this is a sign that there was some karmic account from another lifetime, which is only now coming up for settlement. And then on the other side of the scale, where we have karmic credit with people, then the experience is fairly different. One thing that you might experience in your life is sometimes you meet someone and you immediately feel that you know them, that you like them, and you have many, many things in common. And very quickly you come into a relationship which works really nicely and it's balanced and everything is good. And this doesn't happen that often because mostly we tend to find ourselves in karmic debt with people. But this is an example of karmic credit. And we can also call this a relationship of karma. So you have a relationship of harmonious karma. So you can have a relationship of negative karma where there is a lot of disturbance and suffering and pain in the karmic interaction. That would be a relationship that we would call a relationship of bondage. Sometimes you may experience yourself in a relationship with someone where it's kind of love-hate. You can't live without them and you can't live with them either. But you're tied, you can't get away. So this is called a relationship of karmic bondage. And this happens especially in very close relationships. So it can happen in families. Everyone gets born in a family, and so you get the mother and father that you get. But why do you get this particular mother and father is because when you get born in a family, it is all because of your karma with those family members. And so there may be some family members that you have quite a neutral, perfectly okay relationship, nothing special, but there's no problem. And so that's a fairly neutral relationship. Then there are other members of the family with whom you have a really hard time. I'll give you a little example of how strange it is, that how it plays out. Recently, I met some boys who, I'm speaking from Germany here, and they had come about a year ago to Germany from Africa with their family. And the two boys were twins, and identical twins. But strangely enough, the father of those two boys favors one of the twins and gives him whatever he needs, attention, love, support for his school projects and his sports interests and so on. But then the other twin, who's a really nice boy, he gets neglected. His father doesn't treat him well, looks at him as if he really shouldn't have been born, and is really quite horrible to him. And so how do we interpret this? We would say that with one boy, the father has a harmonious relationship, and with the other boy, that second boy is somehow in debt, karmic debt to the father. But with the twin brother, the karma is very positive. So you can see how karma is like a very intricate web of interconnecting threads between the different souls, sometimes good with one, bad with another, and it gets very complicated. So when we hear this expression, as you sow, so shall you reap, it's really a very simple description of karma, which is not taking into consideration any of the other dimensions and the other complexities that are there. So when you look at your life and all your relationships and you wonder, how did it ever happen that I connected with these people in a good way, those people in a bad way? What's going on here? And so the process of understanding the nature of the karmic connection, and then considering this question that you have in your relationships, which is, how should I resolve this relationship? So therefore, there is another angle of approach that I would like to propose to you, and that is that when things are bad and theoretically that there is some sort of karmic debt getting paid out here, but it's too complicated to figure out the exact nature of the debt. But the other angle that you can look at is, this is a test. This is a very, very useful way to look at it. What sort of test is going on when you find yourself in a bad relationship with someone, especially someone close, maybe that you're related to and you can't just turn around and walk away because there's a blood connection. So you're stuck with them. And it's a test. What is it a test of? Now, one thing we can say for sure is that you must have done something with that being, that soul, which puts you in debt to that soul. So when you decide to interact with someone and how you will interact with them and what you will do and all of this, this comes from your character. So everyone has good and bad characteristics. Everyone has character defects. Everyone has specialities, talents, and so on. Each one of us is a whole universe of virtues and vices and talents and all sorts of personal characteristics. So what it means when we got into some sort of karmic debt with another being is we did it on the basis of some character defect or character weakness. And so here it is again, coming up for settlement. And when you experience yourself in a situation like this, where someone is giving you a hard time, we also use the expression, this person is pressing my buttons. So when somebody presses your button, then you will react in a certain way, and you're not powerful enough to stop that. That's called having your buttons pressed. So we do also think about spiritual practice. And spiritual practice is study and meditation for the specific purpose of getting yourself strong and in your power and in your essential pure characteristics, right? The essence of a human being in terms of characteristics is purity, power, peace, love, bliss, and so many virtues. This is your essence. But when the spirit is weak, which most spirits are at this time, then something happens, some situation arises, and you will conduct yourself not in a self-empowered approach, but you will operate from your weakness. And this is what puts you into karmic debt in the first place. And it also reinforces your weakness or intensifies your weakness. So the karmic debt coming up for settlement is also your weakness or your character defect getting attacked, challenged, and normally you would just do that same negative behavior once again because it is provoked by that situation. Someone pressed that particular button and you played out that character weakness, and it was not something you could do anything about. It is stronger than you. And then when you're suffering, you're settling the karma, but because you're reacting from the negative character defect, you're creating a new karmic debt. And it may be more of a debt than what you just settled. And so this is why over the course of a long period of time, there is overall an intensification and increase in the overall debt, which also translates as an increase in human suffering overall. And I mean, there are many indications of this. There's so many problems going on, so many wars happening. I think in every family, there's some degree of dysfunctionality. There are problems in businesses, in organizations and institutions, in hospitals, in schools, in every way that you could interact with people, either who are really close to you in family, or that you work with, or that are part of your community, or you find yourself in a war situation with other people from another community. And all this is getting more and more of a tangle. And the more you suffer, the weaker you become. And so there is another thing that spiritual practice helps us with, which is really, really good. And that is that it teaches us that when something comes along which really gives you a hard time, two things you must do. One of them is to not take that negative energy into yourself. That means you're not taking it personally, you're not absorbing it, you're not having an emotional feeling about it, wanting to take revenge, resentment. All this type of thing is a way of internalizing that suffering that was just inflicted on you, that hardship, that pain. And then the other aspect that spiritual practice teaches us is power of endurance. Because if we can manage the pain that is sent in our way and endure it, we find that we see another spiritual law coming into play here. And that's a very interesting one that not everybody knows. That is that in any situation, in anybody's life, circumstances arise, something maybe that has to be endured, and this will persist for some time. There's a time limit. And when the time limit is finished, then it fades away. So what that does for us is it gives us a good motivation to think about persevering in the face of difficulty, handling the difficulty, because you can tell yourself it will pass, it will finish after some time. Just you have to endure it for a while. And we have a very different relationship with enduring something for a while or enduring something forever. If it's forever, we don't want to do that. If it's just for a while, it's more manageable. We're willing to do it. So these two things, not taking this sorrow, this real negative feelings that are sent along with the negative action, and to internalize that is to really weaken the self and make it much more difficult to get past that particular activity or situation which gives us pain. And then the other is to manage it, to hold out, to persevere, to just hang in there until it's past, because it will pass. Everything is like that. It arises, persists for a while, and then it fades away. So there's another thing, and that is something comes, you say, okay, it's a test, and you have to really think, okay, what is it in me that makes me particularly susceptible to this type of situation happening again and again and again. Because the difficult situation can also be construed as a message. This is a message from the universe, you can say, a message from the universe that's telling me that there's something about my way of conducting myself that needs attention, and this painful, unpleasant situation is there as a wake-up call to let me know that something's not okay and I need to do something about how I conduct myself. So then it requires us to take a good long look at ourselves. Because our normal tendency is to immediately blame the other party for doing some bad thing to me. And we wouldn't naturally think, oh, this is a wake-up call, this is happening to me because I need to do something about the way I conduct myself. And I'm not seeing something about myself that I really need to see. And this is why this situation has come up. So you see, there are many different interpretations, and it is up to us to select that interpretation which is the most profitable, the most beneficial for ourselves. And I call this enlightened self-interest. Because if somebody does something bad to me, and I just want to take revenge, all that will happen is I will increase the karmic debt, I will increase the bondage, I will increase the suffering, and it's basically not very bright of me to do that. So I need to change that and bring all the energy back to myself, my focus of attention back to myself, and say, okay, where's the lesson in this? Because there's a lesson for me going on in here, and I need to identify the lesson and then learn the lesson. So when you are a person who really wants to move ahead in your spiritual development, your personal development, then it's always good to look at karmic connections in this more subtle way. Let's go for a moment before we finish to connections with other people and places which are really positive. And I would just like to define what is really, really positive karma. And it has been said that the most positive karma of all is when you see a need and you fulfill that need right away. That is really very, very good karma. You see a situation, there's something good you could do to improve that situation or make it really right, and you do that. That means your motivation is your motivation is that there should be the best outcome, not just for you, but for the other people involved in that scene, that circumstance. So this powerful, pure karma is all about motivation. So you need to spend some time sitting with yourself and asking yourself, okay, what motivates me to do anything? Because your motivation will dictate the overall general pattern of your karma, and even how you handle the circumstances where it's clear that there's some negative karma getting balanced or resolved. So what makes you do what you do? Are you motivated by making the world a better place? Are you motivated by some kind of higher purpose? Is this what makes your life meaningful? And if it is, then it means it's likely that you have quite a big pile of good karma to your credit. And if you intensify this motivation that you want to do action, all your actions, your thoughts, your feelings, your words, your choices, if all of these are motivated by some sort of higher purpose, and you want to sort of link yourself to an overall higher purpose for humanity, it's an altruistic motivation. And if you're motivated like that, then this small stuff will seem to you rather petty. Somebody disrespects you, okay, not my problem, it's the other person's problem. You can even give yourself a little mantra. A mantra is a suggestion, right? A piece of advice. Give yourself a little mantra which says that I do not need to suffer for somebody else's bad karma. So if somebody does something negative to you, okay, maybe you're settling something, but if you say, okay, that's up to them, whatever they do, but it's up to me how I respond. So you're always being really proactive in situations which, if you are reactive, increases the debt. But when you're proactive, it's a very, very good way to finish off the debt, take the minimum amount of suffering, pain, and get through it quickly, and you're on your way. And also you're keeping yourself free because you don't have to think about that person. When you are reactive and somebody treats you not well or disrespects you, then you're thinking about them, and that creates a karmic bondage because you're thinking about them and what they did and how it wasn't okay, and on and on and on, which really drains your spiritual energy. So to be able to let go, not take it personally, definitely don't suffer for somebody else's negative karma, and get on with what's next, because karma is also in a wider context, and we cannot really see any of these spiritual topics in isolation. They're always in a bigger context. So karma is in the bigger context of destiny. And many people believe in destiny. Not many people know what it is, but it's like everything is supposed to be the way it is. And ever tried to change somebody? Never works, does it? Things are the way they are, people are the way they are, circumstances are the way they are. And most people also believe that they have a personal destiny. Do you think you have your own destiny? And your destiny is high. So your destiny corresponds to the kind of person you are, the kind of motivations you have. And if you are just totally selfish in every direction, then you're creating a future for yourself, which is not that great. It's quite ordinary. So your destiny is not just something that's there, but you're creating it with your karma. And it's such a large expanse that, everybody has their destiny. And then within that, they do their karma, which can make the destiny brighter or dimmer, depending on you. So karma and destiny are very much like left foot, right foot going along together. And you probably experience sometimes you get into certain situations where it doesn't matter what you do, the situation goes its own way. And then you can understand from that that the force of destiny in this case is more powerful than the force of karma. And then there are other times where you're called to action, you need to be proactive and do something, and then the outcome of that scene becomes good because you took action, you did a pure karma, and you resolved the situation. And by doing that, you also create a brightening of your destiny. So you can see how complex this all is. And I know that we'll be looking at some questions in a moment, but this is why this study of spirituality really takes time. And we need to give time to it. We need to give time to thinking about it. And that's really what meditation is about. So we can have just a moment to think about our karma. I, the self, I think, I feel, I speak, I do things, I have so many different emotions. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. Take fear, for example, that's a feeling, that's an emotion. Many people these days, they have anxiety. And when this is very powerful, it's going to influence your karma. If you are afraid of a situation, you won't act proactively. You will be courageous or cowardly. The feeling of fear is there by itself. It's almost neutral, but how do you handle it? Are you courageous or are you cowardly about it? Because if you're cowardly, you will do a negative karma. If you're courageous, you'll do a positive karma. You see? So all your different feelings are mixed, you know. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant, but how you interpret them, what you decide to do about them in the bigger context, that will influence your karmic connections and also your destiny. So we need to take time to think about ourselves. You just think about yourself, your circumstances, your life. Ask yourself how you feel about your life. Are you satisfied with the way it's going? Are you satisfied with who you are in the context of your life? Just go inside a little deeply and just feel the energy of your motives. You're watching this talk about karmic connections. That means you must be interested. You must be motivated to understand what karmic connections are. How does this affect you? Is it going to help you to know about these things? And then once you've heard about it, you need to try it out, test it, think about it. Definitely never give up on anything or anyone. Stay with it, go inside, and also try, when you have any untoward situation, try and understand what's the lesson for me. What's the wake-up call? But this alarm is trying to wake me up about something important about myself. You can't change anybody else. You can't change circumstances, but you can change how you feel about it, how you interpret it, what you're going to do about it, how you feel about what you're going to do. Does it make sense? You can start to calculate, if I do this, what will happen? If I do that, what will happen? So karma is such a thing that you can calculate in advance. If I'm looking for the best possible outcome, define that outcome for yourself and decide, okay, I can do this, this, and that will be the result. So this is called being a little bit wise in the context of karma. So I will stop there and turn it over to Sister Jabin, who definitely has some thoughts about all this. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. It is amazing how it is interlinked from our thoughts to our feelings to our destiny, and how karma plays a big role in our lives. If we could have a few minutes of, like you mentioned, that contemplation, that we can sit for a few seconds when we are dealing with difficult or negative karmic relationship or connection. What do we sit down and contemplate upon, and how do we, before we respond or react, so that we can react proactively instead of negatively? If you could guide us for a few minutes.
Well, the first thing is to delay your reaction and tell yourself, okay, let me deal with this later on. Take some time, be by yourself, and first of all, focus on who you are and what you are. You're pure, you're at peace, you're a spiritual being. Feel that. And whatever that person did, that's a scene, like a clip from a movie or a TV show. It's just a scene. And look at that person, how you feel. What they did triggered a feeling, no doubt. Identify the feeling. They made you feel angry, but it's optional to express that anger or not. Usually the situation is complicated. Who is that person? What is that person? It's also a spiritual being. Everyone is different. Everyone has their story. And what do you want? I think the best is to have a light touch relationship. Tell yourself, I give this person full permission from the bottom of my heart to be who they are. Let them be essentially what they are, also pure, also peaceful, loving. That's what a soul is. And when a soul is weak, they do things that are against their essence. Let yourself see behind and deeper than what they did. See the human spirit. Let yourself send vibrations of good energy to that soul. This is your spiritual brother, sister. These are clips in a TV show. The real connection between you and that being is easy, light, harmonious. Let it be. And bring your energy to yourself. Let that person be a little distant in your mind. They are what they are. They did what they did. That's them. And now, you. What are you? Are you in your power? Are you stable? Be still and just allow things to be what they are. Bring in a feeling of love. And just put the whole thing into the hands of the divine, because the karma will play out anyway. Most important for you is to be free. Take time to stabilize like this. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. I really liked what really touched me was what you said, that allow them and accept them to be as who they are. And I think that is the main point here, that once we allow them and accept them, it makes it easier after that, what you said, that who they are also loveful and all their virtues that they have. So yeah, it is not so easy to know when you're almost finished paying back your karmic debt, because you don't know just how much karma you have with them. When it comes to karmic relationship, you have to pay back your karmic debt to the other person, and or learn whatever lesson you were supposed to learn from that relationship. A karmic relationship is typically one that challenges us, but it is an opportunity to step into the most powerful version of ourselves. This is what I've taken from today. It is the painful parts of a karmic relationship that allow for deep transformation. That's when you realize that this person is a teacher who is helping you step into who you're really here to be. So thank you very much, Sister Denise. I shall read out the questions that we have, and also request the translators who are with us today, if they have any questions, do let me know so that then I can direct to you. The first question here is, when an infant girl or a child is mistreated, raped in particular, is that too a karmic account?
You would have to say it is. And one of the interesting things that we know from our spiritual study is that when you leave your body and you take another body, normally you change gender. So if you would be a man in one life, then you would take birth as a girl. And so if you have a little girl who gets raped, she, as a little girl, didn't do anything in this life, and you become horrified by this situation. But when you zoom out and you look at the bigger picture, you can understand that this karmic story that would lead up to something like that is it would have been a man in a previous birth who probably did a lot of raping, and that taking birth as an infant girl who gets raped would be that soul getting the retribution from that earlier activity. And so, you know, cultures which know about karma would immediately make that interpretation. But what you also have to do is understand that this is an interpretation which comes to mind very quickly, but there are other possible interpretations. And so it depends on what sort of rape, who did that rape, under what circumstances, did the other members of the family facilitate it? Did they not protect the child when they should have protected the child? So many other different things come in. And another thing that is also there is that it can be a situation where that child is getting strengthened through going through very, very severe and traumatic situations. Sometimes this can happen, you know, during times of war. People behave abominably to each other, and war is killing and raping all the time. So it's not necessarily that it happened in peacetime. And so that can be an equalizing of a war crime, you know. But because when you leave the body and come to the next body, nobody knows who you were or what you were doing before. And what is happening now is that that infant girl will grow up, and depending on what quality of soul she is, depending on what kind of support she has, on the attitude of the family members and so on, she will either come through really strengthened, or she will be really, really badly psychologically and physically damaged. So one of the problems with hypothetical questions is you can never give an adequate answer. So it's always a good idea to consider questions about yourself, you know, because you know who you are, you know what you've experienced, and you know all the details of the people around you and so on. So you're not doing any speculating. When you have a hypothetical horror story like an infant girl getting raped, you're being in a way like a voyeur because you're making judgments, you are making statements about something that you really don't know enough details. You cannot know enough details. But if it's yourself and you were personally raped as an infant, and you're living with that, and you're now an adult, you know, then you've got material to work with, because you know how you feel. You know what is your relationship with the other people in your family. You know what is your relationship with yourself. And you have to do a lot of psychological work and indeed spiritual work so that you can turn that situation around and use it as something that makes you come into your power, maybe more than other people around you. And it also helps you to be an independent person who has come to terms with who you are and with what's happened to you. And that's actually more more useful to approach it in that kind of way.
Thank you, sister. Our next question is, people are born in a family who follow X religion. However, due to circumstances or for whatever other reason, they change their faith. Has this got to do with karma too, or anything to do with karmic account?
Well, the world has many, many religions and subdivisions within those religions, and there are all sorts of pathways that we follow as we go through birth and rebirth. And you may belong to one faith, but you have a karmic account with people in another faith, then you'll get born in that other faith, and you'll settle that account, and maybe other account opens up between yourself and your original faith, and that draws you back again. So this is there. Definitely, it is there. But I think the important thing is to focus on what we call the essential self. You know, there is this word dharma. Mostly people translate the word dharma as religion, but it doesn't really mean religion. In very few cases does it mean religion. Dharma means the way that you live and the way that you follow. It's the way. Like in China, they use the word the Tao. This is more like dharma. And dharma also means what you are. So the original dharma of a spiritual being is you're spiritual, you're pure, you're peaceful, you're loving, you're powerful. And this is the essential dharma of every soul. So looking at the divisions, religious divisions, national divisions, cultural divisions, divides us actually from ourselves and from each other. But I mean, I have people in my life from all kinds of different parts of the world, different cultures, different races, different religions. And well, I don't see that. I see the being that they are, and I relate to the being that they are. And this is what we learn in spiritual practice. We call that soul consciousness, that I'm a spiritual being and you're a spiritual being. And regardless of your race or your nationality or your language or whatever, you are still my spiritual brother or spiritual sister. And I will engage with you on that level. I will not maintain any kind of prejudices, because people very often are prejudiced. They will be in favor of whoever is your same nationality or your same religion, and then others, they're like someone else, they're other, they're not us, they're them. It creates this division, you see. And spirituality says that's very artificial, and it doesn't really have much meaning. It's not very helpful. It's common, but it's not really the best way to go. Better is to really see, you are my brother, you are my sister, and we love each other because we can, because we are human beings, and because we share the earth, we share the spiritual inheritance of spiritual light and love, and that is the basis of our karma, you see. Otherwise, when your karma is based on prejudice and small considerations, it will become negative karma.
Thank you, sister. There are a lot of messages telling me to tell you how thankful they are, and it has been a very inspirational talk, and they have taken a lot. There is one which says, "Thank you, so grateful for this discourse. Was so very eye-opening. Understand karma so much more. Been through the lowest point in my life, and it lasted for too long. I'm doing really great now. Increased my spirituality, in a good space right now. I have overcome and moved on. Is there anything else that I need to do now?"
I think you've done what you had to do, and you've got through it. You got strong. You're in a good space. What could be better? Congratulations. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. And I hope that more people will be doing that. Then we can have the world be a much better place.
Okay, we still have a few questions, sister. Is it okay with you?
Yeah, we can go on for a few more minutes, sure.
Okay. If we get separated from a soul that we have karma with, do we still live with that karma with other souls, or is it finished? So that person is no more, what I understand from the question. But what they mean to ask is that karmic account still there, or it's finished?
To me, your karma with that person is finished because they've moved to another place. They may come back to you if it's not totally finished, and it'll carry on. But this is the kind of example of you got into a karmic trouble with somebody because there is some characteristic you have which has not been properly resolved. And in that case, if that is the case, then it will play out with other people until you get the message, until you wake up and really do the work that you have to do on yourself, so that those tests are no longer needed because you got the message, you did the work, and you moved on. That's how it works.
Okay. Do animals also have karma? Some animals are being badly tortured in this day and age. Is it due to their karma that they are facing this situation?
Well, if you're going to badly torture an animal, you are going to accumulate some negative karma, because the human being is a higher species than animals. So they are accountable in the way that animals are not. You know, an animal doesn't go against its nature. If a shark is hungry, he will eat something, and if it happens to be a human being who's bothering him, he'll eat that human being. That's not his negative karma. That's the negative karma of the human being to put themselves in front of a hungry shark, you know. And the problem with human beings is not really understanding and respecting nature. And, you know, this is one of the reasons why people in spiritual practice are vegetarian. You know, there's no need to kill animals just so you can have a steak. And, you know, in the wilds of Africa, what happens? A lioness will kill a buck, an antelope, and the lion will have his lunch, and then come, you know, other creatures. The hyenas will take some, the vultures will come last, the different other people. So, you know, and they don't kill unnecessarily. They kill in a way which corresponds exactly with their nature and corresponds with the ecology of that place. The only species which doesn't understand these things is human beings. So human beings are the ones who bear the big responsibility for these things, and animals will suffer. Animals, we will say, is part of nature. So at the moment, the relationship between humanity and nature is not very good, because human beings have been exploiting mercilessly and created a karmic debt. So what is going to happen in result of that? Starvation, climate change, illnesses, many, many things, which are the automatic consequence of inattentive karma in your relationship with nature. So we need
Sister,
to think about that.
thank you. We have one more question here. Sometimes we are in the same spiritual path, and our family or the colleagues that we are working with who's handling the same project as us, they have the power to take a decision, and they are negative, or their way of thinking is negative. Should we follow them, or what should we do? Is it that by following them, then we are also creating another karmic account? Or should we break the connection physically, but internally we have blessings for them?
No, this is cowardice. We have to face, when you're in a situation and you're not in a position of power, and someone in a position of power is doing something or making a decision that you feel is not right, then it's necessary for you to take it up with them and make sure that you do your side. You have to follow the voice of conscience. You have to be very realistic as well, because it depends very much on the situation, but at least you should say that I have another suggestion. This is going against my conscience. I cannot participate in this. And always when you do that, there will be a big price to pay, but at least you'll be right with your conscience. And when you're in a position of power and you don't do the right thing, you will pay, if not now, then later. And so if you are person who understands these things well and listens to the voice of conscience, you'll also be open to other people making their suggestions, which you will evaluate, and then you will make your decision in a good way. But everybody has their different way of doing things, and sometimes what looks to you to be something not right is actually not too bad, but it just depends on your value system. Sometimes there's a clash of values. One thing that people don't realize is there's no such thing as universal values. Values are based on culture and education and age and religion, and all these different factors cause us to very often come into value conflicts, because values do generate conflicts. So if you are interacting with people on the basis of virtues, it's going to be less conflicted, because it's not a matter of values. But people really don't make this distinction. They think there's universal values, and whatever your values are, they're the right ones, and everybody else's are the wrong ones. It's not really quite like that.
Thank you, sister. Just the last few words, maybe from you, if you could direct us on how we can finish our negative karma by connecting to the Supreme Being or to the higher source.
Well, the most important thing is to make sure that you do have a lot of meditation time, because the big problem is people are spiritually weak, and you only do wrong things when you're spiritually weak. It's not because you're bad, it's just because you're spiritually weak, and that your spiritual strength is deactivated when you're spiritually weak. So you need to meditate a few times a day. It depends, it's up to you, but the thing that makes you do the right action and deal with wrong actions that are done to you is to be in your spiritual power. And the only way to do that is to give time to sit and take power from the Supreme Being. And most people don't do it enough, or not precisely enough. And so give time to studying about it and figuring it out and practicing it, because that is the very, very best solution to everything.
Thank you, sister. That was very, very nice. So I hope all of you have enjoyed today's session, and we will practice now sitting in silence and connecting with the Supreme Being, where we get ourselves charged, like Sister Denise said, so that we can become powerful to not only face our karmic bondages or relationships or situations, but we can also overcome them with positivity and be proactive. So thank you for joining us today. Our next session is on coming Saturday, 26th of June at 4 p.m. Jakarta. I have dropped my number in the chat box. Do feel free to message me and I can update you with the upcoming sessions. Thank you, Sister Denise, once again for joining us. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, and